Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a bit of a political extra where I'm going to talk to you about Donald Trump's claims concerning NATO and whether the European NATO forces would ever come to America's help. And he denigrated NATO forces that had previously helped the US in Afghanistan by saying they were sort of behind the lines. And he had previously not really understood that actually NATO had come to the US's help. This was then pointed out to him by Mark Rutte. And I don't know what the chronology is, whether this Trump claim came before Rutte's or after. But then you had Trump saying what he said either before or after Mark Rutte correcting him on NATO's assistance of the US. And then tonight on the flagship BBC political programme, Question Time, hosted by Fiona Bruce, you had Emily Thornberry, a Labour MP, a stalwart of the Labour Party. Not everyone's cup of tea. I actually quite like her. I think she's good. And she went to town, justifiable indignation over Donald Trump, over these comments. And it was glorious. And I just wanted to share it with you. And she was just so on point. Look, before we get there, please remember to like, subscribe and share. Keep yourselves in the loop. Thank you to those who have already done so. Let's now get into the details. So here we have on Fox News, Fox Business, Donald Trump with Maria Bartiromo talking down NATO allied forces.
I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test. And I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there or we would be there. But will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
They stayed a little back. They stayed a little bit off the front lines. They gave their lives in Helmand province. It was horrific there. And the British, Danish, particularly the British and Danish, of all the allies, lost a lot of troops. This has been met with disgust, actually, from a lot of people.
You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And
they
stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. But
here's a man who's dodged the draft multiple times.
We've been very good to Europe and to many other countries. And, you know, now under my administration, that began because we had a very successful first term. That began then, but it has to be a two-way street, I think. But I've always said.
Okay, so that was what Trump claimed. And I don't know if that was after his meeting with Mark Rutte, where Mark Rutte had already corrected possibly what he had said earlier. And then he took into account that, okay, because previously he'd said that, you know, NATO allied forces wouldn't come to the US's help. Then I think he might have been corrected here by Mark Rutte by saying, actually, we did in Afghanistan. Then he comes out and admits Afghanistan, but then denigrates the efforts there and belittles the NATO allied NATO forces in Afghanistan. But this is what Rutte said.
There's one thing I heard you say yesterday and today. You were not absolutely sure that the Europeans would come to the rescue of the US if you will be attacked. Let me tell you, they will. And they did in Afghanistan, as you know, for every American who paid the ultimate, for every 2 Americans who paid the ultimate price, there was 1 soldier from another NATO country who did not come back to his family. From the Netherlands, from Denmark, particularly from other countries. So you can be assured, absolutely, if ever the US will be under attack, your allies will be with you. Absolutely, there's absolutely.
And you wouldn't expect it to be one-to-one because this is an American thing. Like the war on terror was predominantly a reaction against 9/11, an attack on the United States. And so the United States would be putting far more troops into solving that issue as they saw it, more than NATO forces. But NATO forces came and assisted the Americans.
I really want to tell you this because it is important. It pains me if you think it is not. And under your leadership, this alliance is stronger than ever.
So obviously ends out with, oh, but you're still great. But actually, I've got to correct you on this. Then we get to Emily Thornberry on BBC Question Time. And I tell you what, I just love it. I absolutely think this is glorious.
He talked about NATO not coming to
You can
help
feel
the United
her
States if
anger.
we needed them. And he said, we've never needed them. They say they sent some troops to Afghanistan and this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a mistake.
It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's so much more than a mistake. It's an absolute insult. It's an insult to 457 families who lost someone in Afghanistan. How dare he say we weren't on the front line? How dare he? We have always been there. Whenever the Americans have wanted us, we have always and have a great deal to do with. But the one thing that was clearly there was a genuine affection for the United Kingdom, because they understood they were all military men, and they knew that whenever they had been fighting alongside someone from Britain who had been there to support the United States and be involved in action with the United States. How dare this man, who's never seen any action, who somehow or other, when there was a draft for everybody else in the United States, managed to avoid it, and yet now is commander-in-chief and knows nothing about how it is that America has been defended. I mean, seriously, it's an absolute insult. We have had a very shocking few days. We've had a very shocking few days. So we have had the leader of Britain's most important ally, you know, with whom we do have a close relationship in terms of defense, in terms of security, strong economic relationship, cultural, historic. You know, America's our friends. But we have had a leader of that country who has behaved in a way which is bullying, which is rude, which has been deliberately trying to undermine us, which has been trying to undermine NATO. And you wonder, where does this end? It's as if he has no anchor. It's as if he has no off button. And what we have done, fortunately, and I'm really proud that we have, is we have linked arms with our other friends and nations, and we have said, no, enough, Donald Trump. No more of this. You are not getting Greenland. You are not introducing tariffs. You are not going to be involved in military action. You are not going to breach international law. This is the line. Do not cross it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he will react to those threats or whatever you want to describe them as, but
we don't threaten. We're just saying no.
Yeah.
Whew. Honestly, brilliant. That should have had a standing ovation. Should have had a standing ovation. That absolutely righteous indignation. And I thought I'd share that with you because, you know, credit where credit's due. And I think credit is certainly due there with Emily Thornberry in putting her piece back to Donald Trump, you know, not to the Americans, not even to the Republicans, but to Donald Trump and his leadership there. And I think that is important. But anyway, let me know what you think. I think that was worthy of sharing.